Imagine this. You're stuck in Denmark's endless winter, the night swallowing the day, your heart heavy with loneliness, and you're ready to give up. Yet what if, in that very darkness, you could find hope through connection and English? Cold morning silence. Have you ever woken up and felt like the entire world was still asleep, even though you were wide awake? That's exactly what a winter morning in Denmark can do to you. The sun hides like it's on strike, and the sky is painted in 50 shades of gray. You open the window, expecting life, but all you get is silence so thick you can almost chew it. For someone already battling loneliness, this silence is not peaceful, it's heavy. Psychologists call it sensory deprivation, when your brain doesn't get enough stimulation, and it starts to amplify your emotions instead. Basically, your mind throws a party where sadness is the only guest invited. And in Denmark's dark season, that party lasts for months. Now picture our character, wrapped in a blanket, clutching a cup of coffee that's more about comfort than caffeine. The sound of the spoon stirring is louder than the entire neighborhood. No birds, no chatter, no footsteps, just the humming of the radiator and the stubborn ticking of the clock. This is the kind of silence that doesn't soothe, it accuses. It whispers, you're alone. But here's the twist, silence also creates space. Space to listen to your thoughts, and yes, maybe argue with them. Space to practice a word in English out loud, morning, cold morning, just to break the stillness. Neuroscience tells us that even speaking to yourself activates the same brain regions as a real conversation. So technically, you're not entirely alone. Your brain is your very first conversation partner, the punchline. In Denmark's frozen quiet, the first voice that saves you might actually be your own. Empty streets. Step outside, and the city feels like it's holding its breath. The streets of Copenhagen in winter look almost staged, clean, quiet, and strangely empty. People move fast, their scarves covering half their faces, their eyes avoiding contact as if a smile would cost too much energy. For someone aching for connection, this scene hurts. Your brain, wired for belonging, starts sending alarm bells. Studies show that loneliness registers in the same part of the brain as physical pain. That's why an empty street doesn't just look cold, it feels like rejection. Our character walks past shops with glowing windows, hearing laughter muffled behind glass. It's like being invited to a party but left outside the door. The silence from earlier now follows them into public space, except this time it's louder because it's surrounded by people who don't seem to notice. Here's the strange truth. Your mind interprets every averted gaze as proof that you don't matter. But neuroscience insists it's not personal. Most people in winter are just busy surviving the cold. Your loneliness isn't proof of being invisible, it's proof of being human. Punchline. Sometimes the busiest street can feel emptier than your own room. Coffee shop escape. Imagine ducking into a coffee shop, hoping the warm air will melt away the cold in your bones. The smell of roasted beans wraps around you like a blanket, and for a second, you believe you found refuge. The hum of machines, the soft jazz in the background, it feels alive, finally. But here's the catch. aliveness doesn't always equal belonging. You sit down, latte in hand, and your ears catch bursts of laughter, snippets of Danish words you barely understand. Everyone seems plugged into their own circles, their own worlds, while you're orbiting on the outside. Psychologists call this social comparison. Your brain can't help but measure your quiet table against their noisy joy, and the result? A cocktail of envy and sadness, served extra bitter. Our character tries to open a book, maybe to practice some English sentences. But the words blur, drowned by the echo of not fitting in. It's ironic, surrounded by people, the loneliness suddenly grows teeth. And here's the scientific twist. Studies show that being lonely in a crowd actually spikes stress hormones higher than being physically alone. In short, the coffee may be hot, but your soul feels colder. So what do? You sip, you breathe, you practice whispering a new English phrase under your breath. I am here. I belong here. Not because the coffee shop proves it, but because saying it out loud rewires your brain a little. Punchline? Sometimes the warmest room in town still leaves your heart shivering. Letters unsent. Back home, the silence returns like an uninvited guest. To fight it, our character opens a laptop and begins typing an email. The words spill out, memories, frustrations, tiny details about the gray sky and cold streets. For a moment, it feels like a bridge to old friends far away, but then comes the hesitation. The cursor blinks like it's mocking you. Send? Or don't send? Loneliness has this cruel trick. It convinces you that sharing your feelings will burden others. Psychologists call it social withdrawal, when your brain tells you to protect yourself by hiding. Ironically, the very thing you need, connection, becomes the thing you avoid. Our character hovers over the send button, finger trembling. Science says your body releases stress hormones even in these micro decisions. As if choosing to reach out were as risky as crossing a frozen lake. Finally, the email stays in drafts, unsent. The screen glows, but the silence wins again. Yet, here's the curious part, writing itself still helps. Studies show that journaling or even unsent letters reduce stress and organize your emotions. In other words, speaking to the page is a step towards speaking to a person. The act itself whispers, you still want to connect. Punchline? Sometimes the bravest thing you do isn't sending the message, it's daring to write it at all. Frozen lake walk. Picture this. The air bites your cheeks, your breath hangs like smoke, and the world seems carved out of ice. Our character walks toward a frozen lake where families and couples are skating, their laughter bouncing off the cold surface like little firecrackers. Kids wobble, fall, and get up again, cheeks flushed with joy. It looks like a postcard, perfect, cheerful, untouchable, and there they are, standing at the edge. Not on the ice, not in the fun, just watching. Psychologists call this the outsider effect. When you observe joy but don't participate, your brain exaggerates the distance between them and you. The laughter that should warm you feels like glass walls keeping you out. The crunch of boots on snow becomes louder than the music from the loudspeaker. You stuff your hands deeper into your pockets, as if hiding them could hide the ache in your chest. Science says physical cold can intensify feelings of emotional coldness. Your nervous system literally links the two. That's why winter loneliness feels sharper, more physical. But here's the twist. Standing there, you practice an English phrase under your breath. I want to join. One day, I will join. Your voice is shaky, but real. Neurologists confirm that imagining yourself doing an action activates the same brain circuits as actually doing it. Translation: saying the words out loud is the rehearsal for stepping onto the ice. Punchline: sometimes the first step onto frozen ground begins with a sentence whispered to yourself. Unexpected kindness. Out of nowhere, it happens. You're walking down a narrow street, shoulders hunched against the wind, when a stranger passes by. Instead of the usual quick glance, they look at you, really look, and say in simple English, "Hello. Cold day, huh?" It's such a small thing, yet it feels like a spark in the dark. Psychologists call this the micro-moment of connection. Just a few words, a smile, and your brain releases oxytocin, the chemical of trust and warmth. For a second, the heavy loneliness lifts, replaced by a flicker of belonging. Our character replies awkwardly, maybe just a nod or a quiet, yes, very cold. It doesn't matter that the English is simple, or that the conversation lasts only 5 seconds. What matters is the reminder, you are not invisible. Someone noticed. Someone spoke. Here's the science kicker. Studies show that even brief interactions with strangers, like chatting with a barista or exchanging greetings on the street, improve mood and lower stress. The human brain craves recognition as much as it craves food. And on that freezing street in Denmark, recognition feels warmer than any coat. Punchline: sometimes the tiniest hello can thaw the biggest iceberg inside you. Learning connection. One evening, tired of the same silence, our character makes a choice: join a local English class. It's not fancy, just a community room with fluorescent lights and a whiteboard that squeaks. But inside, something magical happens. People from all over, Turkey, Syria, Poland, Vietnam, sit together, united by the same struggle, finding words in a language that isn't theirs. At first, the sentences are clumsy, stitched together with pauses and mistakes. But then comes laughter, because mispronouncing sheet as something less polite is universally funny. Suddenly, loneliness feels less sharp. Psychologists call this shared vulnerability. When everyone is struggling together, mistakes become glue instead of walls. Science backs this up. Learning in groups boosts dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. That's why the same word, practiced alone at home, feels boring, but practiced together, it feels like victory. Our character notices that each exercise, introducing yourself, asking, "How are you?" isn't just about grammar. It's about belonging, about building tiny bridges with every phrase. The room is filled with accents, missteps, and shy smiles, but none of that matters. What matters is the rhythm of voices rising and falling together, creating a chorus of connection, punchline. Sometimes the best cure for loneliness isn't perfect English. It's broken English spoken side by side. Small victories. Think about how powerful 3 little words can be. How are you? For our character, saying this phrase to a shopkeeper feels like climbing a mountain. The first time, the voice cracks. The second time, the shopkeeper actually answers. And by the third, there's a smile. That tiny exchange is enough to light up the day. Neuroscience explains why every successful interaction, no matter how small, releases a shot of dopamine. It's your brain's way of saying, "Good job, do it again." The victory isn't in flawless grammar. It's in daring to speak at all. Our character collects these moments like treasures, asking for bread at the bakery, greeting a neighbor, replying in class without freezing. Each one feels like proof that they are no longer stuck on the outside. In psychology, this is called building self-efficacy. Small wins that slowly convince you that you're capable of more, and the beauty is, these victories stack. Today, it's one word. Tomorrow, it's a sentence. Eventually, it's a conversation. What once felt terrifying becomes routine, almost natural, punchline. In the marathon of learning English, it's the baby steps that secretly win the race. Shared warmth. One evening, our character is invited to a simple community dinner. Nothing fancy, just a few tables pushed together, steaming pots of soup, and mismatched chairs. At first, they hesitate at the door, heart pounding with the old fear of being out of place. But then someone waves them over, hands them a plate, and suddenly they're part of the circle. The conversation is a mix of broken English, hand gestures, and laughter that fills the gaps words can't. Psychologists call this communal bonding. Sharing food triggers the release of endorphins, making people feel closer and safer. It's why eating together has always been humanity's favorite way of saying, "You belong." Our character listens, tries a few sentences, stumbles, and gets corrected gently. Instead of embarrassment, there's encouragement. Each laugh isn't mocking, it's shared joy. The loneliness that once weighed like an anchor now feels lighter, melting into the warmth of soup, voices, and candlelight. Science even shows that warm food can boost feelings of social warmth. Holding a hot bowl doesn't just heat your hands, it tricks your brain into feeling emotionally included. And on this night, every spoonful tastes like acceptance, punchline. Sometimes the cure for a frozen heart is as simple as soup served at a crowded table. Hope in the dark. The Danish winter doesn't magically end in one night. The streets are still gray, the morning still silent, and the cold still bites. But something inside our character has shifted. They've learned that even in the longest darkness, a single spark, a hello, a shared laugh, a small victory in English, can keep hope alive. Psychologists call this resilience, the brain's ability to adapt and grow stronger through challenge. What once felt like endless loneliness now feels like a season. Harsh, yes, but temporary. Every English word spoken, every connection made, is proof that the ice is cracking a little. Picture them now, walking through the frozen street, head a little higher, practicing a phrase under their breath. I am not alone. It's not perfect English, but it's perfect enough to carry them forward, and maybe that's the lesson. You don't defeat the dark by waiting for the sun. You defeat it by creating tiny lights, one by one, until they add up to a glow strong enough to walk by. Punchline? Even in Denmark's darkest winter, hope speaks with a voice, and sometimes, it speaks in English. Even in Denmark's longest, darkest winter, a single smile, a simple greeting, or one small English phrase can ignite hope. Believe that every tiny step you take carries the power to create real change.